Hey there, everyone. Can you hear me? Circle is weird. Apparently, it requires me to go live before people can join in. It's not expecting that to be the case at all. Mm-mm-mm. Okay, yeah, so we'll probably have to wait a little bit, give folks some time to join us. How are you guys doing? Uh, mm, not the best. Okay. Make sure I have everything I need here. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, the cool thing about Circle is that they have a bunch of features like built in, like the live stream that we're doing, but it sometimes feels like they're still working on something, some of the features that they offer, and I think the live streaming is definitely one of those. Okay, I know what was going wrong. Huh. Hmm. Not sure how long we should wait though. Um, because in any case, this will be recorded, uh, and I'll make it available to Prime Spaces. So I'm not sure. Hmm. Hi there, Vuko. How are you doing? Okay. Yep. That's weird. We're doing great. Um, I'm excited to get this started because today we're gonna touch on some of the what I think it's the most important elements. And as soon as we start to talk about workflows, I can start to ask you guys for feedback on a couple of things that we really need to know uh, to be able like to move on a bit more concretely. Let me. I'm not sure, Hugo. I don't think that Circle offers functionality like that. Um, yeah, but if it's not, yeah, maybe we can use another tool. I don't see a problem with that. The fact that this one is integrated with Circle definitely helps on my side, but not against it. We would need to check. Yeah, I'm not sure how how much should we wait. Maybe into like 8:15 here, 8 for me, right? Um, I was just retesting some of the stuff that I wanted to show here, and it's starting to. I'm not sure if this machine is being able to handle the streaming and the containers, but we'll try. We'll try. Yeah, so 2 more minutes and we'll get started. Okay, yeah. Redirect. I think I found the issue. Yeah. Yeah, that's actually the right answer. Okay. Yeah, so 1 more minute and we'll get started. Mm, 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 mm. And maybe I should try to work out some sort of background music for this period where we're waiting for people. And it's like ideally we wouldn't wait for people, but since we're just getting started, I don't think it's that bad. Woo. Welcome, Lucas. So Lucas is one of our senior devs. Uh, I'm pretty sure most of you guys are familiar with Lucas. There's not really a reason to introduce him, but yeah. Okay, yeah. So I actually missed it. Uh, let's get started then. I'll switch this to sharing my screen mode, and we will put this in full screen. Mm-mm-mm. It's been so much time since the last time I used Keynote that I'm not even sure how it works anymore. Okay. Hmm. Why do things always work when we're testing, and it never works when we actually need it to work? Is there any sort of study that tried to investigate this phenomenon? I spent a lot of time like testing this early today, and it does not want to share my screen anymore. Maybe it's because there's too much stuff open. Not sure. Let me try something else here real quick. Yeah, so we do have a problem here. my God. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, it looks like we have it. And yeah. Okay, let me know if you guys can see the presentation screen. And then we'll get started. Okay, so you can. Yeah, so let's get started. Welcome everyone. The idea here is that today we are going to go over one of the most important features that we are introducing with this thing that we are calling WP Ultimo Next. And this feature is workflows. My plan originally was to start the demos by a different feature, but after I released the landing page, it became clear to me that we need to get the concept. We need to get a good grasp on the concept of workflows and how it works before we move to anything more complex. So today is the first of a series of presentations we'll do. Not every presentation will be really long. Sometimes I'll just drop like some sneak peeks and videos demonstrating how to achieve a certain goal onto the WP Ultimo community. But for these base level understanding of workflows, I think it's a good idea to go over it together to cover some of the rationale behind going in that direction, so we can better establish how workflows relate to everything else we'll be doing. So yeah, let's get started. So what we have in today's agenda. So my idea is to cover some talking points, cover some concepts, some of the reasoning behind why we're making some of the decisions that we're making, how Next impacts WP Ultimo going forward, and how it doesn't. And yeah, and then after that, we will have a Q&A, and we'll have some time to answer questions if you guys have any. Okay? But yeah, so just to go over the agenda here, we will have a brief introduction going over Next, why Next is necessary. Then we'll work what is a workflow. Then we'll briefly see how workflows work. This first demo is not really complex, and that's kind of on purpose, because we're still working on a lot of the elements on the UI and on the actions that we're actually implementing. And I don't want to get you guys confused with some of the elements that we have now, which are mostly there for like proof of concept and validation purposes, and are not necessarily how things will end up, because that's something that we are going to finalize together inside the Prime section of the community. Then we'll go over some of the technical benefits of going this path. why this is beneficial for us, and why the way we're choosing to implement this uh, greatly reduces the maintenance burden of WP Ultimo on our small team, and what workflows mean for WP Ultimo in general, and what changes you should expect for WP Ultimo going forward. Okay, so first, before we get to workflows, I need to clarify a couple of things about Next. And yeah, so we'll do a brief overview of next year. And the first thing that we have to have, like, real, we have to be absolutely 100% clear about WP Ultimo Next is what it is and what it isn't. So, what is WP Ultimo Next? Simply put, a set of new features. It's just a set of new features. Nothing more, uh, nothing less. It is developed to work alongside WP Ultimo in version 2. We won't have migrations. The process of transitioning people from V1 to V2 was really traumatic. And one of the reasons why I think is that uh, I completely underestimated how migrations can be a huge problem. So we won't have any migrations. It's just something that you'll be able to install. We'll probably ship these features inside WP Ultimo Core, but especially for Prime members, the first contact that you have with these features will be in the form of an add-on that you install. You install WP Ultimo V2 as you would normally do, and then install the next features add-on. So next is it's not WP Ultimo version 3, at least not for now, and it won't be for a long time. Is not a standalone product. It relies on WP Ultimo to achieve a lot of the things that it does. And while it technically it isn't a replacement of WP Ultimo V2, later in this presentation, we'll actually see that that's not entirely true, but the way we'll be doing it is the key here. Okay, so that's important to get nailed down. Yeah, so again, WP Ultimo Next is just a set of new features. Each of these different features do a lot of cool stuff on their own, but their true power comes when we start to use them together. And to use them together, we need some sort of glue, some sort of thing that binds all of these features together. So adding new custom post types and new taxonomies, new fields, new attributes to posts, to users, that can be useful on its own. But like, we have a lot of plugins that do that already. Most of them are not really multi-site compatible, but we do have plugins that do that. Access gates, it's a great idea. WordPress roles are not the most efficient way to control access. It's not at all multi-site compatible. It causes a lot of headaches. But there are other solutions for that as well. Studio is great. So the idea of Studio is that we want to allow you to create fully customized admin panels completely outside of WP admin, so we don't have to deal with the performance bottlenecks that WP admin has. We can cache it, and you can build it as if you were building a customer site with your favorite page builder. That's cool. I think it's a great feature, but we want to give our customers the ability to do stuff. And there isn't much we can do simply by creating an admin panel that doesn't have like any rich functionality, because uh, there isn't much we can do with just the page builder. And then we have the prime features, and those are uh, actually they can be useful on their own, but especially for prime features, we'll see that they really shine when they're used together. Not today, but soon. But the thing is, the element, the glue that joins everything together and transforms this package of seemingly like not that related at all features into a like a software as a service factory, a software as a service builder, the glue that binds it all together and that opens up for all the different possibilities that we want to offer the WP Ultimo customer base is workflows. So it is absolutely like it's the most important thing that we need to do at this point in the process is to make sure that we understand how workflows work and why it it can be used as this glue that binds everything else together. So you'll see that my plan for next week is to do a demo of Connect, which is a feature that a lot of people are excited to use. And you'll see that Connect uh, is basically built on top of workflows, and that's by design. So we'll expand on that a little more as we progress. Yeah. So before we move further, I need to cover why we decided to go this direction, because when I first announced WP Ultimo Next, there was a lot of things that I think we could have communicated better, and a lot of like misunderstanding. And I think that I just assumed that people were familiar with some of the problems that we have with WP Ultimo, because I used to rage about those problems pretty frequently. And but that was not at all the case. So I'll cover those here really quickly, just so we can have a better understanding of the reasons why we are not like stop. We are not working on the issues that WP Ultimo has right now to work on WP Ultimo Next. We are solving the issues we have right now by working on WP Ultimo Next. And this is an important point that I think that we also need to make clear. But yeah, so let's go. So one thing that I've been talking about for a long time, and one of the reasons why I've been talking about this stuff for such a long time, is that we've been working on some of these features that are part of Next for a long time, and we're just waiting for a couple of like the last pieces to fall into place, especially with full site editing and the block editor feeling more stable. So most of our customers are not developers, and that's not at all what I was expecting when I launched WP Ultimo, because my idea with WP Ultimo was to solve the issues that people like me were having. So I wanted to solve the boilerplate, so payments, memberships, subscriptions, site creation, stuff like that. But my reasoning was that people would benefit from WP Ultimo taking care of the boilerplate, and then build so they could focus on building the actual features of their WAS or their SaaS, uh, because that was how I worked on my WAS when I first built WP Ultimo. So I built WP Ultimo to take care of the boilerplate, so I could know there was no need to worry about that anymore, and I could simply work on the main features of my WAS at the time, which was a portfolio for photographers, wedding photographers. Um, but the reality is that uh, most of our customers are not developers. So WP Ultimo actually falls short because it takes care of the boilerplate. So it takes you all the way to 90% towards the completion of your project. But if you're not a developer, chances are that you might reach some sort of like uh, barrier that you cannot transpose without either hiring someone or copying pasting a bunch of PHP snippets that might not work that well together. So, and it can be quite frustrating because you feel like WP Ultimo is taking care of most of the problem and that you're almost there. And in some sense, you are almost there. And then only to reach like some sort of like roadblock that feels like you cannot transpose. And that is, it's so clear to us based on the kind of support tickets that we get that people are getting almost there and they are not being able to transpose the last 5% that they need to get done in order to finally get to a product that they can launch. So that's one of the challenges that we have with WP Ultimo at this point. And then we also have the fact that most of our customers, they think that they're building a regular website as a service platform, but they are not. So most of our customers, they are actually building a software as a service, like the more general concept of a software as a service, which has a website as a service component to it. So it's the vast majority of our customers, they are not building like get your generic website with one click here. They are building get a one-click website that also does X, or that has Y functionality on the back end that helps you manage your business. So most of the time, they are building a SaaS product that has a WAS component to it. And while WP Ultimo can be really good for like the classical SaaS offering, if you're planning to do something else other than the classical SaaS, you might end up reaching those kind of roadblocks that I mentioned before. So that's also a challenge. And the thing is, I I have a hard time saying no, and maybe that's not that great for someone that is like stewarding a project such as WP Ultimo, but uh, I kind of feel like obligated to try to come up with ways to help people achieve uh, their goals. So we end up adding stuff to WP Ultimo that I don't think necessarily belonged inside the core plugin or even in an add-on. And as time progresses, we start to accumulate those additions and we grow in code complexity, and WP Ultimo becomes larger and larger and harder to support, harder and harder to maintain. It gets scarier to release a new version because we are afraid that if we change something here, we might break something there. Um, and one of the reasons actually why V2 was a complete rewrite was that I started to feel like V1 had reached that stage. And so V2 was an opportunity to start fresh from a clean slate with all the knowledge that we had gathered working on V1. But we quickly realized that the problem, it's almost like a natural phenomena. We As time progresses, we started to see the code base get more and more bloat added to it and get more and more complex to maintain. And I don't want to have to release a new version that clears the slate every 2 years just so we can like prevent this thing from becoming a monster that no team can maintain anymore. So we need to come up with solutions for those problems. So that's the main conclusion here. So this process, it's not sustainable in the long run. Uh, yeah, it's simply not sustainable. Definitely not sustainable for a small team such as the one that we have. So that being said, we have two possible paths ahead. The first path is we keep WP Ultimo as is, a website as a service builder. We will help you get over the boilerplate, and that's it. If you want to offer some sort of customization of additional feature for your end customer, you'll have to hire someone, learn to develop something like that. Or we have option two, which involves transforming WP Ultimo into a tool that's more flexible and that can cover most of the use cases. But to do that in a smart way, in a way that is possible, because it's hard to build something that tries to cover a wide variety of use cases. Yeah, so we had a choice to make, and in the end, we decided to follow the second path. And workflows is are I'm not sure right now, but yeah, workflows are a major part of how we're doing that because we're basically breaking WP Ultimo down into smaller components so we can compose those components uh, in a way that it's more flexible, it's easier to maintain, uh, it's more customizable. So in the end, WP Ultimo will be more less and less like a product in itself, and will become more and more like an engine that can run other stuff that is fed into it. And the way it does it is through workflows. Okay, so are you still with me? I know that it sounds a bit, I'm not sure if it sounds complicated. Just let me know if you guys are following, or just so I can have an idea if I'm being able to make myself clear here. Yep. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, moving forward. So what the heck is a workflow? Let's figure out. So basically, a workflow is nothing more than a set of pre-configured actions that should be performed whenever something specific happens. And sometimes it returns a value. So that sounds a bit too complicated. So to break it down a little bit further, so we have triggers that whenever a trigger happens, we want to fire a set of actions. And sometimes we want to do something at the end of the process, which is a result. Yeah, so uh, let's see how it works as of now. So before we go into that, a couple of things that we need we need to make clear here as well. So we are working on the UI, the UX as we speak. This user interface, the interface that you guys are about to see, still very, very preliminary, but we are working on some concepts. I'll actually be running some of them with the Prime group maybe later this week. Not sure. Yeah, and the examples that I'll give here, they are not that complex. So I just want to make sure that we can have a good grasp on how workflows work and how we can make sure that and how it enables us to do some crazy stuff in the future. Okay, and as the week progresses, so between now and the next demo, which is the Connect demo, I'll share a couple more complex examples in the group, and we can go from there. So now I actually need to share a different screen. Let's see how that goes. Okay. Are you guys still with me? I'll actually, let me grab this here. Okay. Yeah, let me switch here so just we can have a bit more space. Yeah. So here we go. So let me, before we see this, let me actually go to the add new screen here. So remember that slide that I showed you. We a workflow is nothing more than a set of actions that we want to trigger when a particular event happens. So, and sometimes we want to return a value at the end of the process or do something else like redirect to a different page. Um, so our workflow builder uh, will probably have a lot of changes to the UI in the future, but this is the version that we have uh, working for us at the moment for testing purposes. But basically, we have the first, we can give a name to our workflow here. And then we have a trigger section where we can actually select a trigger. So we can select an action, a filter, whenever we receive a webhook call, a form submission, schedule, and there'll be a lot of different triggers that you'll be able to choose from. We, yeah, no, I'll talk more about that by the end of the thing. And then we want to perform actions when this event happens. So we can log the user in, we can even run some arbitrary PHP in a secure environment if you want, if you're a developer that is trying to validate some stuff. And you can add multiple actions. So you can do things sequentially and use the output of one action in the next, in the actions that come after that. And by the end of the process, you can choose if you want to do something. You say that like for workflows that run in the background, so for example, like publishing a site, which is a process that can be very resource intensive, something like that, we would recommend uh, to run in the background. So for most cases, workflows that run in the background, you won't be returning anything, but sometime, depending on the kind of workflow that you're building, it might be necessary to actually do something by the end of the process. And yeah, to answer your question, Nicole, it is pretty similar to how Zapier works. The difference here is that since this is hosted inside our network, and it knows about the different contexts. So it knows if you want to do something on the network, if you want to do something on a subsite, and it has direct access to the database, to the WordPress environment, to WordPress functions. We can do a lot more things that are a lot more interesting than what we can do with Zapier today. But yeah, so the example I have here for you guys is implementing a custom user logging system. So here we're using the trigger, the form submission in the future. So these all of the UI here is not finalized yet. So that's why I'm being a bit careful going over here. But you can actually listen for the form submission, and it will capture the fields that get sent over that doesn't have a UI yet. But then whenever we get a form submission over here, what we want to do is that we want to log the user in using the login action. And the logging action has some input expectations. So in order for the login action to work, you have to give the info that it needs. In this case here, it needs a username and a password. And you see here this strange thing over here. The only reason why I'm actually writing this is little bit snippet of code here is that we are still working on the UI, but will actually work like Zapier has, like the field selector. So here, basically what I'm saying here is that I want to get from the trigger, the value password. So whatever this trigger receives, if it receives a field with the value password, the workflow will replace this content over here with the password that was actually filled in by the customer. And then in the end, I want to redirect the customer to another place. I just realized that the description here is still wrong. But here's the same thing. We have a field so if we want to redirect the customer, we need to redirect them to some place. And here is where like the fact that we are inside WordPress actually can help us, because we have everything that WordPress offers to us is available here. So here I'm actually calling the WordPress function that returns the home URL, but all of these things will be accessible via context selector. So we will give you the context of where this action is taking place. So the URL of the site, if we are in a multi-site environment, for example, if you're building something that is inside an admin panel that you created using Studio, the site URL would actually resolve to the site, the customer site that your customer is managing. So I know it's still a bit too abstract, but I just want to try to get the idea across that we don't want to basically work on hard-coded features for WP Ultimo. We want to create composable blocks that we can package ourselves as pre-built workflows that you can use. But if you want to modify, to add an action, to change the parameters, you can do that. Yeah, so let me try and run this over here real quickly. So to have a form, you would actually need to use Studio, which is not something I want to do right now, because we'll have a specific demo for that. So what I'll do here is go pretty raw here. I should probably have a snippet for that. I couldn't find it. Plugin. So you guys won't actually need to do something like this. The only reason why I'm having to do this is because I don't have Studio set up on this particular environment. But one of the things that Studio covers is farm building, which is something that we will cover soon. So here we just have a simple username field and a password field. Let's name them, just because that's the actual name we'll get on the other end. So name, username, and here I'm giving it the the action URL that is actually the action URL for this workflow here, which is ID 78. Again, you can link all of this together using the other tools, but that's not that's why I was a bit like not too confident about. But yeah, let's try that. So here we have our form. Let me take this out first, just so we can test it real quickly. And it won't do anything. So let's do test, and send it. And here we have the values because it's submitted correctly. So that's how it should work. Let's re-add the fields here, and we want the form to send the info to start, 78, and post. If we go back now, I'm already logged in. So let's open that on a, that might be a problem because I'll have to share the other thing as well. Let's share the entire screen here. And let me grab a new anonymous window. No. Okay, so if we visit this page here in a place that I'm not logged in, and let's check the. So I'm fishing for the username field and the password field over here. So in theory, if I go with admin and send it, okay, I'm missing something here. I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, that's the problem of using a hard-coded form. Okay, that's embarrassing. Let me try something here real quick. Okay. Of course. No. Um, mm, mm, mm. Oh, I can't believe it. I actually took out something that I shouldn't. Okay, that's embarrassing. Is there a way to ignore it? Oh my god. Um, yeah, I think I know how to get it out. Um, okay. I'm sorry, guys. I've made a bunch of changes and then I removed it all. Okay, this should do the trick. Let me try again. Okay. Yeah, let's send it again. Okay, the username field is empty. This is not how we should be seeing the error message as well, but okay. The username field is empty. So we are not being able to get the username from the post. So let's see. I checked, I tested every single one of these things before we started. And for some reason, Okay, so we do have a username here. So trigger. Okay, yeah, my bad. I'm sorry. So here it's actually trigger output, and here is actually trigger output. And we can save it, and we can refresh it. Oh my God, what is going on? I can't believe it. Okay, let's the last attempt to fix it, and if it doesn't work, I'll just move on with the presentation, and I'll record some sneaky peeks of like the more complex workflows and post to the community later. Uh, but yeah, so the username field is empty. So where is the yeah, so let's just dump the input here real quick, just so we can have an idea of how things are getting to this point. I'm sorry, guys. I know that you guys have not signed up for live coding, live debugging. So it's trigger inputs. Okay, yeah. Not sure why it didn't have the right value over there, but yeah. So here is actually trigger input, trigger input. Then we can update. Then we can refresh it, and okay, it uh, supposedly logged me in. So let's go to real world. I'm logged in. I have the top bar over here. I was not logged in before, and it redirected me to the front page, which in this case it's displaying the Laravel framework homepage, but that's just because we the technical that's something that I plan to go over on a different video, but to do all of the features that I mentioned inside Next, I basically had to. We wanted to do something that was more future proof and that allowed us to tap into a more mature PHP community. So what we actually did is that we created a very interesting engine that runs the very efficient, very great Laravel PHP framework embedded inside of WordPress. That way we can benefit from modern PHP features, the great, amazing Laravel ecosystem inside WP Ultimo. And we can use that to build better actions, better triggers, better results, and have awesome debugging tools like this one over here, which allows me to basically see how things are working in real time, performance wise, how much time it is taking, all of this. The only reason why this is possible is because a large portion of the work that we've done was to create this meta framework, which I'm calling Aurora, and I'll probably release as open source so other developers can build WordPress plugins using it as well. Um, but it's basically a way to use Laravel inside of WordPress in a way that works. So yeah, so just to give some other a different example to see how we could use something like this to slowly build up the complexity of the features that we're trying to build. What I'll do here is that I'll make two changes. I'll add a new field here to our form. So we'll have the field first half of the password. And here in the end, in the second field, we'll have last half. Oh my God, of the password. And then we'll just rename the fields here. Let's go with F password for first and L password for last. So if we update it here, I'll go over here and I'll log out here. And now if you go back, yeah, it's not sure why this is here. We have three fields: username, then first half of password, last half of password. And if we go and try to log in, it will still work because I haven't made any change here. But if we go like, and I just go with add here and mean here, it won't work because, because I changed the name of the fields, but even if the name of the fields were correct, it would not be able to log me in because the password field would only contain portion of the password and not the entire password. But then if we go here and we know the name of the fields, we can actually compose the input to change the behavior, the expected behavior that we want. So here, instead of doing something like this, I could actually join the two fields together and pass the entire value to the login action. So here we have F password, and here we'll have L password. And then if we go with add and min, it would work. So now I am logged in as expected. And we can even we don't want the values to be dynamic. So I can change this to admin, like the hard coded value admin. And on my login form, I can get rid of the admin field entirely. And that won't make a difference because the action that is actually logging the user in does not need to receive a username field because the username field is being provided here a fixed value. And so I can do something like this. And here I can actually join the value that I'll get here for the home URL with the rest of the path, update. And then if I go and put add here and min here and click login, not only I get logged in, but I get redirected to the updated value that I have here. So as you can see, we can use the different values that we get from the different actions on subsequent actions, and we can compose and start to grow the complexity of the kind of features that we can build. I know that this example is way too simple, but as we start to dig in some of the other features that we have been working on, and the UI and the UX gets a little bit better, I hope you'll be able to see, to have a better grasp of how powerful that can be. Now, let me get back to you guys. Where are you? Yeah, you're here. Okay, yeah, so let's go back to our presentation screen. And I'm sorry, that was way less smooth than what I was expecting it to be. But I guess I was more or less able to get the idea across. So yeah, so now that we got an overview, let's just briefly touch on the technical benefits of going that route. And one of the major technical benefits is that as we break WP Ultimo functionality into actions, what we're actually doing is that we are breaking WP Ultimo into small blocks of discrete logic. And each action has a clear expectation of the inputs that it needs to receive and the outputs that it produces. So it gets way, 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 way easier to maintain. So, for example, here we have one of the actions that we have is an action that allows you to create a file. So maybe you want to, every time you receive a payment from Stripe, you want to create a file. So then you can attach that file to an email and send that email to your customer or to yourself. Uh, Instead of having like a huge blob of code, of hard coded things that need to happen in sequence, which is the case now for WP Ultimo. So, for example, we generate invoices inside WP Ultimo. And to generate invoices inside WP Ultimo, we basically have a gigantic blob of code that handles everything from getting notified by Stripe to generating the invoice file, attaching it, and sending the email. It's really easy for us to break that down into its components, so the different actions. And once we do that, we get to code that looks like this. So it's much better to maintain something like this than it is to maintain a huge class that handles, uh, for example, webhook calls that we receive. So, and then we can just compose these different actions to achieve the same goal. And finally, yeah, so this is something that I think is one of the main things that we're doing differently. And I think will have huge benefits in the long run. So we are really focused on extending WordPress, not replacing it. And what I mean by that is that we are not reinventing the wheel. So I don't want to work on the underlying infrastructure to create a workflow. I don't want to work on the UI to create a workflow in a way that it's easy to share, that has an undo button if you do something wrong with while editing a workflow. I don't need to do that because WordPress created a pretty good block editor for me that I can leverage and that I can use. And our workflows are basically a bunch of blocks uh, that you can add one after another. So, and that brings us a lot of benefits. So some of the benefits of a block-based approach. At the end of the day, a workflow is nothing more than a block pattern. And as a block pattern, they are extremely shareable. You can literally Control C and Control V a entire workflow with all of its configurations from one workflow to another. Uh, and as the infrastructure for block patterns is already part of WordPress, it's really easy for plugins and themes to include workflows inside their own product. So in the future, we could see a world where a specific, uh, like where a company would build a add-on for Ultimo that would be nothing more than a bunch of workflow files uh, on a folder, and we can basically pick those up because those are simply block patterns, and you can pick one up and make changes, publish, and you're done. So we get all the benefits, all the flexibility of having something that is block based, that is a common uh, system definition specification. Uh, and it also makes it super easy for us to implement something like marketplace, because what we're basically doing is the same thing that WordPress did with the block directory and online patterns. So we don't need to. There's no need for us to rebuild that entire stuff. We can simply use it as is and leverage the fact that workflows are nothing more than block patterns, and that way we can focus on actually working on different actions, implementing new workflows, and making those available for our customers. Because one other thing that we can do is that we can basically create new features via workflows and make those available for customers, and then they can install it with one click and make changes if they need to. Uh, so there's no need for us to create an add-on, package it, uh, up the version number whenever a new WordPress version gets released. There's no need to do any of that. It's just there, one click install. You install it, you customize it, and you're done. Um, yeah, so just to drive this point home a bit more, let me switch back to the entire screen over here. And actually, that was not the best idea. Let me switch back to the proper screen, which is this one over here. And this here, as you can see, is nothing more than a heavily customized instance of the block editor. So if we go here and we go to code editor, everything that you see on that screen is described over here. And as such, you can pretty much copy this. You don't even need to use the code editor. You can actually go here, select all, copy, and then we have this one over here. We can select all, backspace to delete, and then Command V to paste it. And of course, it won't work because I'm trying to show it to you. I can't believe it. But yeah, so let's go over it with the code editor example, which we can actually guarantee will work. So if I come here, I drop the code here, exit, it's all here, all the same options, all configured, nothing else to do. And that's true for workflows, but it's also going to be true for the new form editor, Studio. So with Studio, you'll basically create the entire admin panel inside the block editor. And that way we can actually make it easy for our customers to share workflows, but they can actually share entire customer admin panels with all the workflows required, all the pages required to make it work. Okay, yeah. Going back to the presentation here, and we are way beyond our time, aren't we? I'm sorry, guys. Uh, yeah. So finally, the one of the final points that I want to drive home is that going this going with this approach actually has some advantages and disadvantages. But it does mean that we'll start to do things a little bit differently for WP Ultimo moving forward. And the main difference is that we will no longer build features for WP Ultimo. So we'll no longer work on logic that is hard coded into WP Ultimo core. The way we will approach building new features will basically be working on actions and workflows. So even when adding new features, we will from the start work on them on their like uh, minimal like logical blocks instead of doing things as we usually do. That way we can ship a workflow instead of hard code hard coded features. And as we make options to customize core workflows available, our customer base will basically be able to customize, add actions, or remove actions from pretty much every single feature of WP Ultimo. So you don't like the way that the registration flow works? No problem. You can simply click a button to customize the core registration workflow, and you can add new actions, you can remove actions, you can add different logic. Be my guest. So, like, instead of a customer getting one site, you want the customer to get three sites: one that is staging, one that is production, and one that is development. No problem. You can go to the workflow editor, go to the core WP Ultimo registration workflow, and duplicate the create site 2 times. And in front of the URL of one, you can do staging dot and the value that you got from the form. And on the second block, you can do development. And I just realized that you guys were not seeing the screen, but okay, it's no problem. And as soon as you click publish, your customers will get 3 sites instead of 1. All of those examples, they are impossible to do right now with WP Ultimo and the way it works right now because it's too stiff. It's not as flexible, and even when we are able to offer some flexibility, it usually involves us putting out a add-on, which is such a pain to maintain, or one of our devs coming up with snippets, filters, hooks, code that you have to copy and paste. And if for some reason you don't copy the entire snippet, you can completely break your network. Uh, Workflows, they run inside a sandbox. So if something goes wrong, it won't break your network. Um, so that's the idea. So the first feature that we, instead of shipping an add-on, we'll simply ship workflows and actions is domain seller, which is the top feature on the roadmap right now. Um, so we are no longer going to release a domain seller add-on. We are going to release uh, actions that talk to GoDaddy, Namecheap, Open SRS, uh, and some default workflows that register a domain on each of those providers. But if you want to make changes, if you want to fill the form uh, that GoDaddy requires in a different way with different info, you'll be able to do that the way you need it to work, the way you want it to work. You won't need to uh, be limited. You won't be limited by the few options that we as add-on developers decide to make available to you to customize. You'll have full control over how domain seller works uh, on your network, and that's what's so amazing about this. And yeah, and after we get next released, we will progressively, very carefully, very calmly, with lots of testing, start to replace Ultimo's core functionality with uh, workflows based on actions. So right now, the registration flow for WP Ultimo is a bit clunky, not that flexible. Uh, Eventually, we'll replace it with a workflow that you'll be able to customize the actions. We'll do the same for our login form. We'll do the same for site publishing, for what you want to do when you receive a webhook from Stripe, confirming that a payment was made. What you can do whenever a membership becomes inactive. You'll be able to customize all of those workflows to add the actions that you want, uh, to remove behavior that Ultimo has by default and you don't need or you don't want. And I'm really excited to make those tools available to you and to finally give you the flexibility to bridge that gap, that final 10, 5% that you need to get over to ship a product and get customers. Okay. Yeah. Before we go, so the next week we will do another one of these demos. I'll tomorrow probably I'll put a another uh, survey, another poll, so we can decide on what's the best time, the best day of the week. And for next week, we will go over Connect and how you can use Connect. And you'll see that Connect is entirely built on top of workflows. So that's the thing. That's the cool thing about workflows is that uh, Connect has the a offload workflow that copies a site, creates an application on the provider, uploads the site, and installs WordPress, yada yada, all the stuff that you needed to do. But those are just a bunch of actions that run in sequence. So you're actually able to change the way Connect works. And that's pretty exciting because you can do all sorts of crazy stuff that would not be possible otherwise. Um, and so next week we'll have the demo for Connect, and later this week, tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, I'll put out a survey where I'll ask you about what are the plugins that you are using on your network. And you could actually see uh, it would be beneficial for us. You think it would be beneficial for us to have actions implemented to that plugin. Um, by default, we will ship with a lot of actions for WordPress. So creating posts, creating sites, actions for WP Ultimo, of course, so creating memberships, um, creating customers, things like that, payments. But I also we also want to ship with WooCommerce, so actions covering WooCommerce. Um, and then we need to decide what are the next priorities in terms of plugins that we want to add. So I'll put out a survey so I can get your thoughts on those. And yeah, so now we have time for a Q&A. I'm so sorry, guys. We went way over the time that we have agreed on. I apologize for that, but if you guys have any questions, just shoot, and I'll answer. So yeah, time is now. And it gets weird because there's delay, so I'm not sure if I'll if we'll actually get. Otherwise, if you don't have any questions, if you could please just type like I'm good, no questions, just so we can call it a day and finish this up. Thanks, Lucas. Thanks, Vuko. Yeah, so it doesn't look like we have questions. Is that safe to assume? Okay, yeah. So I'll finish this up then. And I think that as soon as I finish this up, it takes some time to process it, but it becomes available more or less instantly. Um, but yeah, I'm sorry about the hiccups that we had, but I'll try to do better on our next encounters. But yeah, guys, thanks for taking the time. Uh, and I'm really excited to share more and more stuff with you, and so we can explore the different possibilities together. Yeah, have a great week ahead, and I guess I'll see you all in the WP Ultimo community. Thanks. Bye.